Hi everybody, this is Dr. Mack at Pacific East Aquaculture. These are a couple of the display tanks we have at our store. This is an 8-gallon JBJ. Pretty basic. There's just the standard LEDs that come with it. There's some blues and some whites, and it has a little tiny pump in the back compartment there, which actually that compartment can be moved around. You can put it on the side for a peninsula setup or move it around different sections in the back. We have real reef rock in here, bag live sand with a little bit of sand from our systems, and these things were set up in one day. Everything was put in one day. The corals, the fish. We have a pair of clownfish, peppermint shrimp in here, some Nacerius, snails, some hermit crabs, and it's been running for quite a while. There's never been any algae. There was never any cycling. Pretty much all the corals look great, do well, keep growing. There's an echo gorgonian in there, an assortment of different soft corals, some photosynthetic plating sponge, and everything just does really well. It kind of is troubling when we have customers come in that have set up a tank that they got advice elsewhere. Maybe they use tap water and they just have algae problems, water chemistry problems, and just can't keep corals alive. It just becomes a chore to have the tank, and it always mystifies me, how that happens, because the hobby really isn't that difficult. If you use ultra purified fresh water, you don't overfeed, and use some good live rock like this real reef and live sand in this particular tanks, pretty much you don't have any issues. Here's a little 6-gallon JBJ, same basic principle, just a really small LED fixture on there. We have assorted soft corals, some star polyps are in there, a couple of leathers, again the photosynthetic plating sponge, pair of clownfish, 2 peppermint shrimps, there's a serpent star, an assortment of snails and hermit crabs. And again, everything does really well. No algae problems, no corals dying. So it really is pretty easy. Like when you talk to people that are not in the hobby and they say things like, oh yeah, saltwater tanks are just impossible to keep, they're really difficult, and it's like, no, it's not. It really isn't. It's pretty easy. Again, use purified fresh water and don't overfeed, and just real basic husbandry. We do a small water change on these tanks every couple of weeks, maybe about a gallon. Here's another little one. This is an innovative marine little cube. This has our tank raised mandarins in it. Pretty basic, but again, no algae problems. It has some of the photosynthetic sponge and some chaeto in there, and a few hermits and Nacerius and snails, and again, no problems with it. Real basic setup. So you say, well, that's great. Those are just easy to keep soft corals. Well, here's one of our 210-gallon display tanks. This has a mix of every type of coral. There are LPS, SPS, acros, leathers, all kinds of different softies. We just use the Ocean Revive Arctic T247 fixtures, the same ones we use in the indoor part of our facility. There are 3 of them on this tank. We run 11 hours of all blue, 1 hour of white. I like to have the white come on late in the evening because I hate the way it looks with the white. I think it just washes everything out. But the corals do great with just the all blue. Here's some acros. There's war coral, chalices. Everything is growing, encrusting. Here are some montes, some grafted montes and other assorted montes. All sorts of different leathers. Everything is just open, really great. There's a purple polyp, Stylophora. There's another acro. It's just completely encrusted on the plug and growing on the rock. Always great polyp extension in here. Do have a lot of flow in here, so we have a closed loop here that's on a C-swirl, which rotates. Lots of flow coming out of that. We have 2 return lines. We get quite a bit of flow from those. We have rotating eductors on those and an MP40 on one side, and likely I'll probably add another eventually to this tank. But everything is growing really well in here, encrusting. We have birds' nests, acros, chalices, a section of mushrooms and clove polyps. Again, all the different leathers, zoanthids. There's some Pavona maldivensis, all sorts of Cyphastrias. There's the branching Cyphastria, Leptocerises, Stylocynias, Fabias, Fabites, Acan echinatas, Acan lords, Lobophilias. There's a Monopora setosa. More leathers and acros and fabias and favites. You can see the acros are doing quite well. The fish population is pretty sparse. There's a pair of clownfish and 1 tang in here. He was added when the tank was first set up. There was a little bit of algae on some of the rocks, and we put him in there, and after about a week there was no more algae, so now we have to actually supplement algae for him. But he grazes on the rock. There's not too much for him. But this one is a bare bottom tank. It's pretty basic, but again, nothing dies in here. There's no algae. We do occasional water changes, nothing real regular. I might do 5 gallons every couple of weeks, maybe. Lots of water flow. Again, the real basic black box LEDs. And I'll show you the sump. I actually have a legit sump on this tank. I'm kind of notorious for just using like Rubbermaid containers. Real cheap repair pumps. These are just like Jabos DC pumps. They're cheap. Has a legit skimmer, a legit sump, biopellet reactor, and actually a couple of homemade devices here. We've got a homemade algae screen or algae scrubber, if you want to call it that. There's a little LED light on it. We just kind of scrape some of that algae off every once in a while. And we've got a Chaeto reactor, a little homemade Chaeto reactor with an old media reactor, and that's pretty much it. Again, real basic, works well. Corals live and grow, nothing dies. So if you're having challenges with your reef tank and you need some advice, I'd be glad to help you out if you want to contact me. But it's really pretty basic. Use ultra purified fresh water, decent salt mix. We use ESV salt mix. We really like that, but you know, pretty much any salt mix will work. There are people that swear by and swear at every salt mix out there. So there's really no magical salt mix. They're all pretty decent, and there are people that use all different ones, from basic Instant Ocean to some of the fancier, more expensive salt mixes. I've tried all of them over the years. I like ESV, but you know, all the others probably work pretty well too. So again, this is Dr. Mack at Pacific East Aquaculture. Contact us if you need anything. PacificEastAquaculture.com. Take care.